basing that guess on CCTV evidence. The body was recovered by the Metropolitan Police's Marine Unit yesterday after a report from the crew of a passing boat. Investigators say the identification was based on distinctive clothing Azidi was wearing at the time of the attack and property found on the body. The police also say after a considerable period of time in the water, formal identification isn't possible visually or from fingerprints, so formal identification will take some time. Prince William says fighting in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas must end as soon as possible, adding there's a desperate need for increased humanitarian support for Gaza. The Prince of Wales has said he is deeply concerned about the terrible human cost of the conflict, with too many lives lost. It follows Lord Cameron's warning to Israel that the fighting needs to stop, and Labour also calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in a major shift in the party's stance on the war. And the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy said earlier on today the whole world wants the fighting to stop. Birmingham City Council says it needs a bailout worth £1.25 billion as it looks to recover from effective bankruptcy. Council leaders say a combination of austerity and underfunding hit the city hard. But the council's own Director of Finance said financial mismanagement is deep-rooted within Birmingham City Council, with an over-reliance on the use of reserves, growing liabilities and imprudent estimates in relation to financial planning. They're looking now at selling assets to cover some expenses, but residents are also facing cuts across essential services, including adult social care, highway maintenance and assisted transport. The beauty retailer Body Shop is set to shut nearly half of its 198 UK shops after falling into administration. It's understood that around 270 head office jobs will also be cut, in moves which administrators say they hope will re-energise the brand. The Body Shop employs around 2,200 people across the UK. And news breaking tonight from the world of football. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has completed a deal to purchase a stake in Manchester United, meaning he seizes control of football operations from the Glazer family. The petrochemicals billionaire has purchased a 27.7% stake in Manchester United in percentage terms through his Ineos conglomerate, after being a Man United fan since he was a boy. The deal concludes a 15-month saga at United, but without the full sale, the fans had been demanding to end the 19-year reign of the Glazers. Sir Jim said, though, becoming a co-owner was a great honour and came with great responsibility. For the latest news stories, do sign up for GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on the screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Wednesday's newspapers. I'm Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, comedians Leo Kearse and Lewis Schaefer. Good evening, gentlemen. Are you well?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Excellent.
Is that a new suit?
No, it's not a new suit, but I already wear it with the full tie, and I'm already starting to feel the constriction. Yeah. Remembering why I don't normally wear one. My whole choice of career was so I never had to wear a tie, and then sometimes you sort of rebel against your own rebellion, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You can't tell me what to wear.
Well, I think even on stage, like wearing a suit on stage, it gives you like an extra 20 seconds before the audience think you're rubbish.
Absolutely, yeah. It looks like you've taken the role seriously, doesn't it? But you don't go for that, right? You go for the safari shirt.
I wear a jacket now.
Yeah.
Because I'm too old to just be wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Anyway, Lewis, you're looking immaculate as ever, and obviously...
Thank you very much.
You are the bar to which we all aspire.
Well, do you know something? It's not like that they take us seriously on stage for that 20 seconds, as they think we're maybe the owner or the manager.
Could be a fire alarm. Anyway, let's take a look at the front pages. The Times... kick us off. This is a big story. The Prince issues Gaza plea for a permanent peace. The Telegraph, William fighting in Gaza must be brought to an end. Guardian, Labour leader faces threat of revolt over Gaza despite call for ceasefire. The Sun, Brit nuke sub-launch fails. Not the most elegant headline, but worrying news. Express, PM completely ridiculous for illegal migrants to jump the queue. And finally, the Daily Star, greedy black hole eats the universe. That you would think is a fairly major story. Anyway, those were your front pages. So we start with the Wednesday's Daily Mail, Leo, and the royal intervention.
Yeah, so William, Prince, isn't it? He's still a prince. Prince William says too many have died in the Gaza conflict. He's issued an emotional plea to end the fighting in the Israel-Hamas war as soon as possible, saying too many people have been killed, and he's called for increased humanitarian support for Gaza. So Prince William is a politician now. Here's me thinking he was just some lucky guy who got born into this life of privilege and gets to, one day he gets to have his face on the money and stuff. No, it turns out he's actually a politician. He's dictating foreign policy to other countries. So that's interesting. I don't know, maybe the fighting would stop if Hamas released the hostages they took. And a lot of the humanitarian support that he's demanding is sent to Gaza. That just gets funneled straight to Hamas so they can build, even if you give them water pipes, they manage to make some sort of cannon out of it.
So you're obviously not in favour. Lewis, do you feel there's any useful contribution there?
I think there is useful, because basically he's saying absolutely nothing. And that's what the king is supposed to do, is say nothing. He says too many have died in the Gaza conflict. What's the right amount of people to have died?
Yeah.
Is that he's not
10,000, and then once you're into 5 digits, it's like...
It doesn't matter. And the point is that he's not taking a side on this.
He hasn't actually said that Israel needs to unilaterally begin a ceasefire. He's expressed a hope for peace. But even so, it is more perhaps... Well, he's not king now, of course, so perhaps the comparison isn't justified. But the great virtue of the Queen was always said to be that she remained neutral on everything, literally everything, including the death of her own daughter-in-law. So there was a sort of extraordinary calm which obtained at the absolute peak of statehood there. And I think we do miss that, maybe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's something about the sort of, the cuddly CEO about Prince William, the sort of Tony Blair type. Hey, guys, let's go to the soft play area and, bash this out.
Having said that, Charles himself was obviously quite an opinionated Prince of Wales.
Yeah, also,
not necessarily a foreign policy. Yeah.
Which is why nobody liked him. And I came to this country and I just sensed that nobody liked the guy, including the Queen. Like I've said, the Queen had put it in her head that she was going to live at least one day longer than Prince Charles.
I like Charles. He was eccentric, but he had some good views. I thought he was right on modern architecture, for what it's worth. Maybe not on organic, greenhouses.
You know what? He was right about other things too. He was right about it's better to have like kind of a frumpy, calm wife than a beautiful crazy woman.
Anorexic, that's fair enough. Guardian now, Lewis, what have they got?
Good news. Or maybe not. The Labour leader faces threat of revolt over Gaza despite calls for a ceasefire. So this is Keir Starmer, who is going to be the next Prime Minister, unless he completely messes it up, which I don't know how he can. And his own party is fighting him, demanding a ceasefire. What this ceasefire means, I don't know, because as you say, Leo, that they've got 120 hostages. If they're your kids, you'd want to keep on going, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many people are killed. But because the SNP voted in favour of this, and a lot of his own front benches are saying, hey, we need a ceasefire, which sounds benign and everything.
Do you think, Leo, that it reflects the demographics of the Labour core vote at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, certainly under Jeremy Corbyn, the sort of leftists, far leftists and also Muslims formed, a big proportion of the vote. 85% of British Muslims voted for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, which is an insane bias towards one party. It's less now because, Starmer's not as popular with them. But I think, as we see more immigration, which apparently we're just going to have unstoppable, we're going to have 12 million people coming in the next decade, or 8 years or something, we're going to see the Western support for Israel fade away and be replaced by support for Hamas.
I mean, I was naive perhaps, but I did think 3 or 4 years ago when the kind of pitch of complaint about Corbyn's anti-Semitism started to really rise, and you could see the writing was on the wall there, that I thought it was a fairly minority issue because, of course, there was no active war going on there. There was no great military efforts. There was a little bit of settlement in the West Bank. It was controversial, but it felt to me like I was surprised how significant an issue. And now, of course, it's flared up so extraordinarily that you can see exactly why people were worried.
And if you look at any left-wing people or comedians on social media, you can see they're all completely swallowed the sort of decolonization decolonization line and think that Hamas is a wonderful thing and Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth.
It's the oppression matrix, isn't it, that we've been discussing for some time on this show. So the Telegraph, Leo, they carry that story as well. But what else have they got?
Yes, they've got a story about trans women in the military are going to be allowed to live in female-only accommodation. So this is if you're born male and then you transition to being a woman, you can stay in the dorms with women who are born women and don't have penises. You know, which, you know, I mean,
Language used to be so adequate for this sort of thing, didn't it? That somehow
I've got to say, yeah, the women, you know, the original, the old-style women.
Women 1.0, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, concerns have been raised because, you know, the men, under the self-ID rules, anybody can just say, oh, yeah, so I'm a woman. I can say I'm a woman, and then if I'm in the army, I get put in with, you know, the bunks with the sleeping women, which I think is a terrible idea. I think I should be in with the men. I've got a terrible reputation. But this is the future that the left wants.
No, I totally disagree with you because I think it's actually a good news because we want our soldiers, male and female, to be super tough. And by putting these men who are women, it just toughens them up. The battlefield is going to be tough. And if these women, who are born women, whatever you call them, without the penises, thank you, Ricky Gervais.
It does
without
feel
the
like
penis.
it didn't last long, did it? There were the kind of furore over the idea that gay men would be admitted to the military, and there was a kind of a certain amount of humour about the idea that, you know, well, what exactly do you think is going to happen? You know, are you going to get molested in the... Well, that had about a fortnight before we moved on to this next...
Exactly. Maybe this is all, and maybe this is a new point. It's all about toughening up our girls in the military. Get tough.
And also the trans, if the trans military come face to face with Houthi rebels, they can compare frocks. Like, where did you get your ball gown?
That is true. Yes, absolutely.
That's sexist.
It will confuse. So we have 30 seconds to have a look at the sun, not the stars. Sorry, the sun.
The sun, Brit Nuke, as you say, is that one of our British nuclear rockets, missiles, crashed. It didn't work.
We say missiles, not missiles.
What do you say, missiles? I'm sorry. It's not one word that's used.
George W. Bush, missiles and nuclear.
Well, it's not one of the words that I use frequently.
But yeah, this is important because Trump said he's going to basically pull out of NATO and we're going to lose our nuclear umbrella. The whole of Europe is going to be left. We've Britain and France have got a few nukes.
So we'll just have like a sort
Russia.
of like a compact umbrella, one that you can keep in your handbag.
Yeah, completely.
Well, do you know something? If Europe wants America's defense, they should pay for it. It's like getting an insurance policy on your car.
Yeah.
You let it lapse. You don't go and say, can you pay for it? I know I meant to pay for it.
I'm afraid I tend to agree with Lewis on this. It's obviously a bargaining tactic. I'm sure it won't come to that, but I think absolutely he's been portrayed as him saying, I wish Russia would invade Europe and all of his enemies. But
we're seeing a complete sea change in how America's becoming much more isolationist, and this is a real thing. People have forgotten what can happen. We've had 75 years of NATO, and Russia is a war economy now. They can sustain an invasion of Europe, and we're just not ready for it.
On the other hand, you did say, Leo, the other time we talked about Russia, that they were absolutely on their last legs and about to be defeated in Ukraine.
I said that.
Never mind. Anyway, possibly. That's the front pages coming up. After the break, Birmingham City Council, RIP, Julian Assange, not guilty plea. Nice little couplet for you there. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Is that yours?
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Chris, what is the preferred way in which the police go about their business at the moment? There's these two strands of thinking: evidence-based policing versus bobbies on the beat.
It's very, very difficult. The problem that police have got, basically, is that they're too thinly spread, and it's too much is expected of them. There's a long list, isn't it? Every month we hear police need to do more about this, police need to do more about that, and police do their best. They're overwhelmed with bureaucracy. I mean, when I was a young PC, if I took a shoplifter in, then I'd be in and out within an hour. You take a shoplifter in now, and you're doomed for the rest of your shift for 6 or 7 hours dealing with the bureaucracy. Police want to get back in those communities because community policing is really the core of policing. But such are the demands on their time at the moment and the bureaucracy and the fact that they are struggling now to retain experienced officers. People are hemorrhaging out of the police and new recruits coming in haven't got that experience, and there's a good chance they may not stay anyway. So there's all sorts of problems. And for the Home Secretary to glibly say he wants more done, frankly, clearly shows that he's got no understanding of the pressure police are under and, of course, the constant criticism that they face across the board. Very rarely do you actually hear of police officers getting praised for acts of bravery or acts of compassion. So there's a problem with morale in the police force and clearly a problem with the Home Secretary who needs to get out there and talk to officers on the front line who frankly are struggling. And last night, of course, was a graphic example.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, still joined by Leo Kearse and Lewis Schaefer. Somewhat frustrated I couldn't complete my Starship Troopers analogy to current political situations. Anyway, Lewis, over to the Daily Mail. Exciting news. Literal Marxist-Leninism has bankrupted its first major city.
Yes, good news. Anyway, this is bankrupt Birmingham City Council needs £1.2 billion from the government, which is like Whitehall, and a bailout to keep the services running. And they're going to raise taxes by 20% because they're bankrupt because they're Labour. And the difference between a Labour government and a Tory government is Labour wastes and Tories steal. and these people have wasted. I know wastefulness. I live in Southwark. And I know it's
quite an interesting story, this one, though. It is quite a specific thing. And what happened was apparently it began 20 years ago, but it's only the sort of... the process has taken this long for the financial implications to come through. But essentially, a deal was agreed between the council and the unions that all jobs should be regarded as of equal value, which is why I say Marxist-Leninism. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. There should be a free market to an extent, even in the public sector, where you find out what you need to pay people in order to get competent ones to do the work, right? But they didn't do that.
They've been paying everybody the same amount.
Well, no, what they did was they agreed this was the fact in principle, but then the union... of course, always the villains, started to connive in order to elevate the pay that certain male-orientated jobs like bin men, when they used to actually need to have a bit of upper body strength to be a bin man instead of just pressing a button on the side of the truck and it sort of hauls it up automatically. And so they earn more money. The female-orientated or the female over-represented jobs discovered this, and there have been class action lawsuits, and it's bankrupted them. That's why.
But you know what I'm sorry.
Well, I've got friends in Birmingham, and they say there's just rampant endemic corruption at the council with people doing things like their cousin will have a taxi firm, so they pay they have all these dodgy contracts, fake contracts, or repeating contracts to carry someone a mile for £1,000.
And it's going to really hurt them now because they've got serious funding issues for anything that remotely. I mean, there'll be libraries will be closed, they will be dimming the street lights and
but you know what's...
which sounds always kind of trivial, but it's not that trivial if you're driving around and suddenly you're...
Well, it creates helps crime. But the thing that I found shocking is this is going on like in at least 50 other councils.
Yeah.
But the Department of Levelling Up, who's dealing with this, doesn't make it public. So the people don't know. It could be happening in my borough, the dirty borough of Southwark.
Right.
You know, it could, I'm not saying they're dirty, but, you know, I did just say that, but...
I wouldn't be at all surprised if it happens in Brighton and Hove, to be honest.
I know what happened to me. They did dirty dealings with me, and so we don't know.
No.
So that's what this country needs. It's a great country.
There's going to be some volunteer packs going out filling in potholes, I guess, and that's how it's going to have to
Probably
be.
doing a better job.
Anyway, Guardian now, Leo, and in the week that Alexei Navalny dies in jail, this has a certain frisson.
Yeah, so Julian Assange faces the risk of a flagrant denial of justice if he's tried in the US. His lawyers have told a permission to appeal hearing in London, which could result in the WikiLeaks founder being extradited within days if they're unsuccessful. In the US, he could be jailed for up to 175 years, which they say is a grossly disproportionate punishment. I mean, he won't serve all of that. He'll die before the end of that.
He must be getting on. I mean, he must have been in jail or on the run for 20 years now in the
Ecuadorian
not living
embassy.
I mean, it was shortly after. It was shortly after the 2003 Iraq War, wasn't it? That was what it was concerned with.
Well, yeah, because that's when he released these unredacted files. And the thing is, people have compared him to Navalny, but he's nothing like Navalny. Navalny's a politician. Navalny's a Russian patriot and a nationalist who loves his country and wanted the best for it, wanted to fix it. Whereas Julian Assange, I mean, he did reveal some absolutely egregious wrongdoing by the British and American governments, but he also released unredacted files that put field operatives at risk. I was working in intelligence at the time, and it was seen as it's a pretty abhorrent thing to do. Genuinely put people and their families at risk, and it could have been avoided by just not doing it in such a gung-ho manner. So and you can't dox James Bond and then think nothing bad is going to happen. It's like, what do you think's going to happen?
I tend to agree with all of that. Yeah, I mean, what do you think?
I think it's Chelsea Manning was mentioned in this, and he got a lot, and Julian Assange got a lot of stuff from Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning put on a dress, let his hair grow. He was a she. He said, "Hey, babe," and he was released.
Was he released? I haven't heard.
And he was released by Obama.
Right.
He was released by Obama.
You got a pun? Because I do remember he had a Twitter account for a while that was quite popular, and he was kind of a really early. It was him and I can't remember the other one's name, but they were Charlotte Clymer. They were the two sort of proto-trans kind of Twitter. Do you remember?
No.
She was military as well, and well, I say she. I am giving her preferred pronoun there, which I haven't. What was Chelsea Manning's? Was it Paul Manning? I can't remember his. I want to dead name him just out of sheer spite. Anyway, but you're absolutely right. Anyway,
so he might get released.
Edward Snowden, who hot-tailed it out there and actually lives in Russia.
Right, but the chance is whoever the next guy is after Donald Trump is president, will let him go.
Yeah,
perhaps that's the only hope.
Just needs to wait for the Democrats to get in again.
Yeah.
That's all
that attempt to get him out through the Swedish sex crime stuff, right? This is something else. This is around his actual, Well, it'll be interesting to see if there is finally a denouement to that. A express as ever now, Lewis, trying to cheer us up with a utopian vision of criminal justice functioning. Yes, well, I'm going to say what I think what's going on, and then you can correct me. Is that what they want to do is that according to the Home Office, they want to deport more criminals because 10 to 12% of criminals who are in British prisons are foreign nationals. And so these are called foreign national offenders. And so if you're a foreign national, you're going to be given something called what is it called? It's something that's a ticket home. What is it called? You're given they don't have it in America. Dispensation? No, I forget what it is. Hold on a second. Let me look. You talk amongst yourselves. But whatever. They want to kick out foreigners. Yeah. Foreign criminals. Well, I think that would be a pretty popular policy, but of course it's the blob, isn't it, usually, that stops this sort of thing happening. Yeah, for some reason the Home Office and all the agencies and NGOs that suck up so much taxpayers' money. I don't know why the Conservative government, after 14 years in power, are still funding these NGOs and they haven't reformed the Home Office. I mean, they've got a few months left to do it, but it's ridiculous. And so this woke blob, try and stop any deportations, even if it's rapists and murderers. They try and ground the flights and all the rest of it. And then they inform students who can then sit on the flight and refuse to put on their seatbelt or whatever. No, it's extraordinary. I sometimes think it's like the Blair government kind of got inside the brain of the Tories about the whole, and it's like sort of tinker with it, and it doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't seem to understand that it's been infiltrated at a far more profound level.
It's like one of the caterpillars with a mushroom growing out of its head.
Yes, exactly that. Yes, or the snail with its eyes kind of going like, eat me, eat me. Yeah, horrible. Anyway, Chinese hacking story, Leo, now. This is in the iNews. To be honest, it might as well be encrypted for all I understood of it.
So there's been a major Chinese hack. That's not somebody in the Chinese army. There's a major Chinese hack on the Foreign Office, urgently investigated by UK spies. They know about it because there's been, funnily enough, there's been a hack on China. There's been a big data leak from China, an anonymous dump, which earlier on in the toilet.
Best kind of find, to be honest. You don't really sign them off.
Sitting in the cubicle, saying, "My name's Leo."
Yeah, taken by a macaque.
You can find me at.
Follow me on Twitter. Plop plop. But yeah, so this dump of files from a Shanghai-based commercial surveillance company shows a list of targets in Whitehall, including the Foreign Office. But obviously, we knew China was hacking us. I mean, this isn't like China's constantly hacking us. We're constantly hacking China. Russia's constantly hacking us. We're constantly hacking Russia. So, you know,
round and round it goes.
Yeah.
I still find it extraordinary. It's coming out now, the extent to which, even during the 50s and 60s, which is still regarded as the McCarthyite panic era in America, the place was absolutely riddled with Soviet agents. It turns out more and more of them are being turned up all the time. So the idea that that's cooled off. I mean, it's a Cold War now, right? This is a Cold War situation.
Well, it's nice that they call the Chinese Communist Party because I think people have forgotten that China is the Chinese Communist Party. You can't say it's not.
It's not quite the same as Stalinism, though, is it? It's a kind of what he always said with Chinese characteristics. It's actually, I've said this before, it's a bit more like fascism in some ways because it's kind of corporate, it's state-controlled corporatism, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is
one person with the control rather than at least with the Politburo you had, you know, it was people vying, jockeying for position more.
Yes, and there was the potential that it was the vanguard for a future golden era. I don't think there's any chance of that, is there? Anyway, the trouble is the technology is too good now and socialism sort of works. We've reached the halfway point in the second half. After the break, we have young white converts to Islam, young green protesters getting charged, angry young farmers wanting dosh. We'll see you after the break.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat.
Yeah.
Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and...
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially, just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, you know, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offender behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, you know, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliner. So, Lewis, we have encouraging news now of the return to faith of the once blighted children of the post-industrial North. This is in the Daily Mail.
Yeah, well, that's actually interesting. Exclusive in the Daily Mail. Why white British children as young as 8 are pledging their lives to Allah. So it's good news they're finding faith. Yeah. But they don't. There's no details. It's just basically this is not. We know this is happening. We know it's happening. It's an imam asking an 8-year-old if he became a Muslim without pressure from anyone. And so the 8-year-old says, yes, I've become a Muslim. But it's similar to a doctor asking an 8-year-old, are you happy to have your penis removed?
I mean, I guess, to be fair, this has been the story of faith of all kinds throughout history. This isn't just a Muslim thing. But it's interesting. Presumably, if they're white kids, the suggestion is this is not their parents who are pressuring them into it.
Yeah, and it's become this sort of social media fad. You're seeing a lot of it. And I guess there's a lot of influencers who are popular with younger males, such as, what's that one? The kickboxer guy.
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Andrew Tate, yeah. So he converted to Islam when he was in prison, maybe to get special food or something. But now it's become this thing. I think because we're such a low testosterone society now. Young men feel this need to submit to something and be part of something. They can't stand on their own like individuals.
It's interesting you say that, because other people say that it's the low testosterone society they're rebelling against, and they want a more traditional vision of manhood and in particular fatherhood.
Yeah.
Islam celebrates the idea of a patriarchy. There is absolutely rank in the home, and the father stands at the top.
I don't think the very young ones are going there on their own willingly. I think they're being led by the mothers. An 8-year-old doesn't sign up for Islam on his own. He doesn't discover it on his own.
I do remember when I was about maybe not 8, but maybe 10.
No, it is the mothers. Sorry. It is the mothers, because if it was the fathers, they wouldn't need to convert.
That's true. When I was about 10 or 12, I do remember starting to take and it didn't last long, but I took an interest in the idea of actually going to church. I was sort of like a lapsed Anglican family, And especially at Christmas and Easter, I'd like to go to the proper big, the proper services and listen to that, and tried to kind of feel the glory of that. It didn't take. And
I did.
There is a period when you're young when you do want the world. You want to maintain its magic to some extent.
Yeah. We're not touching on this subject at all. We're not dealing with this subject. The subject is a major subject, which is it's the trends of time, and Muslims are winning. And they're winning, and people want to be on a winning team. It's a lot easier to be on a winning team than to lose a team of Christians who don't give a damn about anything. Yeah. And the Jews don't convert, because who the hell would want to be a Jew? There's maybe more money, and some of the Jewish girls are pretty, but you don't want to. The Jews don't convert anybody. No. It's very easy to be a Muslim.
I mean, it's easy to become a Muslim, but it's very difficult to not be a Muslim.
Yes.
And this is the thing. It's an apostate if you then
detransition.
Both are options for kids these days. You can either transition your gender or transition your religion. And both are very difficult to get.
Greenpeace protesters in the Independent now, Leo, and as ever, the main value is to be had in their names. There's one called Amy Rug Easy.
Yes, I've underlined that name. I bet she does rug easy. So green protesters are going to be charged with criminal damage over a demonstration at Rishi Sunak's home. So last year, I don't know if you remember, but the activists were on top of his roof. They covered the roof with black fabric to symbolise oil in protest over what they called a new fossil fuel drilling frenzy, which obviously there hasn't been. We just want to get a little bit of oil out of the ground and use it. Can we not just use a bit? I mean, you're using it. How do you think you got to Rishi Sunak's house? What do you think your clothes are made out of? What do you think your entire existence is fueled by? It's fueled by oil. You think we should get it from Russia instead of drilling it here? How is it more environmentally friendly? Is it more environmentally friendly to bring bring it from Qatar or like, you know, some crazy faraway place than get it from the North Sea. Anyway, they all sound posh. Matthew Sweet, Amy Rug Easy, and Alexandra Wilson, who has a surprisingly normal name. So hopefully they'll get banged up. Hopefully they're going to get Assanged.
I suppose the one question will be whether they will be treated just the same as if they had inflicted discomfort on any other citizen rather than the Prime Minister. Do you think that's relevant?
That is relevant, but I shouldn't say this. I'm happy that they're just being punished for anything. You know, I don't care who it is.
Yeah. Send them off in a dinghy to the North Sea.
I mean, I know these people too, because I work with them in the campaigns that I had in my place, and I think they mean well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're wrong. They're wrong. I'm with Leo. I shouldn't agree with Leo because my girlfriend hates Leo so much. But I like Leo.
We are going to need all. A story in the Telegraph, Lewis. This is about farmers, and it strikes me as the perfect balance of dishonesty, disingenuous, and self-righteous.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of everything in it. Basically, I don't know what you meant by that, but
I'll explain. But you tell the story.
I'll agree. It's Rishi Sunak. So he goes speaking in Birmingham, the broke city, to National Farmers Union. Why would they be in the broke city? It's like such a city. It's a great city, Birmingham, and they speak funny. And there's at an event there, and he was like pandering to them by saying, "You don't even do it for the money. You're not a farmer for the money. You've got other motives with vegan." And the Farmers Union said, "What are you, out of your mind? We're doing it for money. We need money. We need money."
This is the subtle. And when I say it's disingenuous, what I mean is he's not saying to them, "You don't need any money, so we're not going to give you any money." He's going, "I get it. You don't do this for the money. Nobody becomes a farmer in the hope of becoming rich."
Yeah.
Obviously, their land is worth a great deal. They are able to pass that on to their kids and avoid inheritance tax and so on. But there is the fact that sizable farmers live on five-figure salaries.
That's not true. They still want to get rich. They want to make money.
They want to, but they want something else. If you wanted to do something else, you'd sell.
I grew up in the countryside. A lot of farmers. They drove pretty nice cars. I don't think, maybe some of them, some of them are struggling, but people are struggling in all business. There's some comedians who are struggling. Comedians drive worse cars than farmers.
The point is, you can sell up, move on, and do something else if you're after big cash. I think that is true, and I think there is there does need to be a recognition that if you're in the farming industry, farming business, you should be supported in doing the right thing for the heritage of the nation.
Well, this is what we're really seeing across the EU and the UK. Like we used to subsidise and support farmers, and we're not doing that anymore. No. And there's this idea that it's just a fungible commodity. We can just get it from Morocco or get it from Russia. We can get our grain from Russia. And then what happens if Houthi rebels stop the boats? It doesn't matter so much if it's flat screen TVs coming through the Red Sea, but if it's food, you need food more frequently than you need a flat screen TV.
And exactly what you were saying about fuel and oil as well earlier. Well, not exactly, but animal husbandry in virtually every other country on the world is worse than it is. It's more despicable. It's more immoral. It's more callous and cruel and indifferent to the suffering of animals. Britain has a very high standard of animal. Welfare, exactly. Thank you. And if you pretend to be interested in that, then you should put your money where your mouth is.
And they want us. The truth is, they want the farmers to go out of business. There's a plan in Wales to make 20% of the land a wild country, which is I support wilding of land, but the purpose is to starve us. Team World wants you dead.
I like the idea of wilderness.
But why is that laughable? It's so true.
Well, the wilding of Wales, though, that would be...
the wilding of Wales.
They have one in Surrey that's quite popular. I haven't been there. Must do that soon. Bad news in The Guardian for Deliveroo drug dealers, Leo. They're about to be replaced by drones.
Yeah, so drones could be used for critical medical deliveries as well as for inspections of railways, power lines and roads under proposals put forward by the UK's air travel watchdog. So basically, it's going to allow operators to fly their drones safely beyond the line of sight. So there's a possibility of minor changes being made to civil aviation regulations. It's not the most exciting story, I've got to be honest. I mean, drones certainly, they're revolutionising warfare, which is more interesting.
It is a bit exciting because basically they're saying that businesses can make money with this. Yeah. They're allowing Amazon to deliver stuff, but the local guy who wants to fly around the neighborhood to make sure that his neighbor isn't, they don't want that to happen.
Well, who's this guy who's flying drones around the neighborhood?
My friend John. Yeah.
I sound of this guy.
Well, no, because it's like we used a drone when we were fighting for the cemetery in Camberwell Old Cemetery when they were deforesting it. And what they say is they're proposing you could fly a drone 15 meters above your property. You know, 15 meters, 45 feet. So
basically, it needs to go any higher than that.
You do need to go higher.
I'm quite in favour of only licensed drones having, but I do think it's an interesting future. And most of us picture a little sort of like tiny little remote control helicopter, but some of these drones are going to be bigger, right?
Yeah.
If they're going to carry decent sized packages.
And if you get one, so my mate Mike was telling me, because he bought one, they can tell if you fly it when you're not supposed to fly it or fly it in the wrong place, too high or whatever. There's got a chip in it that records every little movement.
Oh, and then dogs you in.
Yeah. And I don't know if it actively does it.
There it is, points at you with one of its rotor blades.
Yeah, but let people have it. It's like what kind of police state do you advocate?
What kind of? This is not my. That is not my.
Yes, it is. It is, and the audience knows. Simon is evil.
Cyberpunk dystopia. Meanwhile, the Metro have identified officially the nation's whiniest industrial sector.
Yeah, this is a thing that they did a survey. YouGov did research. They found that, you know what? You hit the nail on the head. You took it out of my mouth. Is that which places are the most stressful jobs?
Yeah.
And the question is, who's complaining the most?
Yeah.
And
who has the vocabulary to complain? Yeah. I think that might be it because it's health and social welfare, right? So they know exactly how to describe.
It's doctors, it's nurses, it's social care assistants, and these people they see people complaining all day long. So of course they join in on it. We need good news, and this is one of the new merch items that I have. It says good news. Can you see that?
You know what I think does actually work for?
And on this side, is me.
We're doing the news.
Oh, we're doing. Sorry.
One thing that does actually relieve stress, which has been sort of degraded or bad-mouthed or brought into ill repute.
You're not going to talk about masturbation.
No, well, that's an interesting one as well, because that is a thing that's being promoted as a way of getting off drugs, apparently, on like one of those government websites.
It's hard to get the needle in.
Oh, no, getting off nicotine. But no, it's sick jokes.
Oh, really?
Really, the gallows humour, right? Which is what surgeons and so on have always resorted to in the army and the police force and so on. But now all these kind of WhatsApp groups get leaked and somebody gets sacked for having made a joke about, something horrific. They feel more stressed because they're not allowed to. You've got to be allowed. You've got to feel able. You've got to feel you have a licence among your cohort, not like on public forums.
Yeah.
To make really.
And do you know who I blame?
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Well, you know the common theme here, and the people who say they feel stressed and need to take time off work, they're all in the public sector. They all get sick leave. If you don't have sick leave, you don't get to feel stressed.
Absolutely true. One more section coming up. It's always the most fun. We have NASA, who need more astronauts. Don't know whether 7 or not. 50 words for drunk. And from the strong came forth sweetness. The old Tate & Lyle logo under scrutiny. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Marnie says being sexy in business is entirely possible and maybe even better.
Well, Marnie, this is something I say is true. I've had to live with this for quite a long time. And I think you can do both. Now, tell me, it's lovely to see you, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
In all your gorgeousness. And you're telling me that often is regarded as something derogatory or something to hold you back. Is that right?
It's just this really unfair thing, this really unfair narrative that women can't do both. Even men can do it, as you know, Eamon. You can do it. You can do it all. And I just think, women are so multifaceted. They can be mothers, they can be sexy, they can be businesswomen, they can be silly, they can be all these different dimensions. And this press push that we have to limit ourselves to one category, it's just unfair.
But do you think that is where some people may be wrong-footed or go wrong to underestimate you?
Exactly. There is that saying, disarm with charm. So, that there is that idea that people do look at someone who cares about how they look, who's perhaps a bit feminine, and underestimate them. But hopefully I've proved that wasn't the case in the boardroom.
And thank goodness for Karen Brady. She's definitely upped the glam stakes on the show. And if anybody can prove that you can be sexy and successful in business, I suppose it's her, really. But where do you think most of the criticism comes from? Because I have to say, hard to believe, but when I was younger, I certainly got a bit of this at my old employer, being told that I had to dress a certain way, not to be too sexy, which I found hugely
you were told this by women.
I was told this by a female boss who didn't like me wearing zips on the back of my dress. Not just me, but some of the other presenters there. And I took such offence. I felt like she thought that I was some sort of, I don't know what. Do you take offence when people are criticising you that, you know, in some way they think you're, I don't know.
There's just no right answer. And as you said, I think Karen Brady is doing an excellent job at leading the charge that you can be glamorous and get the job done.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Headliners. So our final section begins now, always that little bit more edge. In the last quarter, Leo, The Guardian, and this sounds like a job for Headliners presenters, demanding huge reserves of courage from those already acclimatised to sunless isolation.
So this is a year out of this world. NASA seeks volunteers to simulate Mars mission. So this 4-person crew will inhabit a 3D printed replica of Mars. I assume they're not doing the entire planet, to help develop and evaluate systems for a mission slated for the 2030s, so in 10 years' time. So the volunteers will be living in a 1,700 square foot habitat called Mars Dune Alpha. I love how it's got more space than about 3 times as much space as the average London flat.
Yeah.
And this is how are they going to live in this?
But where will they put it? Like Lincolnshire or something? I suppose it's not going to be in London, is it?
No, it's going to be in
Houston.
Oh, it's in Houston.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, would you do that, Lewis? Would you be interested? Obviously, we're not in the age group they're looking at.
Like Leo says, it's way more than where I'm living right now.
Yeah.
But it's nothing compared to how those Americans live. Those Americans live in huge spaces. I mean, would I do it? No, because the truth is, I probably would do it. Because what else am I doing? It would give me a chance to get away.
At this point in my trajectory, yeah, I think I would do it. Maybe not now, but maybe certainly in 5 years' time.
You can't. You're too old. We're too old.
I know.
They don't
That's
want
the point.
us.
That's exactly when you should do it, right? When you kind of go, well, kind of my parabola has gone up and down. That's as far as I'm going to get. I mean, it would be interesting, obviously. But to live somewhere in that kind of terraform thing, I don't know. It's probably not playing to my strengths. I can imagine the sort of people they like.
Yeah.
And they're probably quite boring.
What do you say? You're annoying. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, I am. I'm sort of eccentric and stuff. I'm not somebody. I'd say I've set my own rules and then I rebel against my own rules, let alone other people's. I mean, that was the thing they always said. But no disrespect to the man, but Neil Armstrong, by all accounts, was like the most incredibly dull man, basically. You know, people who knew him.
You've got to be dull to sort of take those kind of risks.
Heart rate of 40 and just kind of like, I'll do that then and I'll work that. Yeah, and that's.
This is NASA. So this is a public sector organisation running this. So I wouldn't want to be at the mercy of a public sector organisation.
Anyway.
Look what they've done at Birmingham.
Times now, and an old Michael McIntyre routine has become a PhD thesis. Interesting to see.
I don't know this, so I'm going to add my own take to it. English got completely gazebo.
I don't know. Gazebo. No, it's gazebo. That's what that word is. Yeah.
Is that what it is?
A gazebo is like a weird structure in a garden, yeah.
And come up with 546 words for drunk. And this lady, some lady who comes from someplace, I don't know where, I think it's German or something, she says that that's down to the English people drinking habits. They drink a lot.
Well, we don't drink any more than Germans. It's a verbal thing, isn't it? We're more verbally creative. The Germans have their compound nouns. We know that. They have very specific words for very rare sort of psychological syndromes and stuff, whereas we use every word available to mean drunk.
But the truth is there are very few words for drunk in Arabic.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah. So it is the fact that these people get drunk. There's a lot of words. It comes from how many words do they have for snow?
I got completely desert stormed last night.
Yeah, you can turn anything into a word for being drunk.
By putting the word completely in front of it. That's the man's entire routine. But it is very funny. He goes through them all. And in America, if you say, I don't know if the P-I-S-S-E-D, I don't know if that's an off-gone word.
I think it is.
He goes, that means I'm angry in America. In Britain, that means I'm drunk. And he goes through about 20 different words that have all specific meanings in American.
Just by putting the word completely in front of it. So you can say, Joe Cumming. Joe Cumming.
Go on.
So you could say, I'm completely sober, and that would mean you're drunk.
Well, sober as a judge is always used slightly ironically anyway, so it does kind of work. But the one that is different is that was stoned. In America, you use the word stoned to mean drunk, right?
Yes.
Well, historically, they used to anyway.
Yes.
Martin used to say he was stoned and he meant drunk. And I used to go, stoned, really? That's a bit off-brand. But no, it just meant on martinis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway, over to the Daily Mail.
I'm sorry about that.
It's a verbal thing. No, it's fine. Over to the Daily Mail. Some rock-solid evidence that breast is best. This is from Glasgow, of all places.
So breastfed babies are less likely to be given treats before their first birthday, according to this study that was done in Glasgow. So researchers from the University of Glasgow found that 15% of babies who are breastfed for 6 months or longer were given unhealthy treats, compared to 45% of formula-fed babies. But that's obviously because the parents, care more about what they're putting in the baby, because breastfeeding, I mean, we did it for, a month, and it's hard work. It's hard work. I mean, it's harder for her because she's got boobs. But, it's
some women find it harder than others as well, and the potential for making them feel guilty about the fact that they're struggling so much is a serious issue as well, which they might then compensate for by giving the kid treats, I guess. But I don't remember giving out what you'd call treats before 1 year of age. I mean, that's quite rare,
my baby still doesn't know that sugar exists or chocolate. I mean, I sit there eating a Magnum in front of her, and she has no idea. She has no idea how delicious it is. But I think breastfeeding, as a general rule, can be a marker of, how much effort somebody's putting in.
But it can be. But then again, it's a bit like I found it very easy to give up cigarettes. And I know I have mates who I think have stronger willpower than me generally, but who still smoke, because some people just find that hard,
Or it could be even simpler an explanation, which is breast milk tastes much better than sweets, and it's attached to their mother's boom.
Breast milk is the only stuff. You do know this. If you're trying to diet, the worst thing you can eat is something that has both sugar and fat, right? And that's because it replicates.
He loves that. This guy here, Leo loves milk.
Magnums are essentially breast milk.
They are.
Yeah.
We've got time for one last story. Court news, Lewis. And Harry Styles has still got it by the sound of it.
Yeah, he does. This is Harry Styles, who I don't know what he does. But he's got a stalker called Myra Cavallo who delivered 8,000 cards to Harry Styles. She comes from Brazil. She came all the way to Brazil to give him. Basically, she's stalking him.
Do you not know who he is?
Of course I know who he is, but I don't know what song he does. I know he wore that dress and did something.
He does Watermelon Sugar.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But I do know this, that if you're going to complain about... I'm not complaining about stalking. You want to stalk Lewis Schaefer. You can go to my website at lewisschaefer.co.uk. I got my new mug here. It says good news, and there's a picture of me happy, and then there's a nuclear devastation. So I don't know whether you'll find that funny.
Views on Harry Styles in the last 10 seconds, Leo?
Well, some people, some stalkers are successful. The one who stalked the woman from ABBA ended up going out with her.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And often also, of course, mass murderers, serial killers have stalkers, don't they, in jail, and end up marrying them in jail.
Right.
So that's possibly one to look at.
Or you're just saying...
The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Times kick us off with Prince issues Gaza plea for a permanent peace. The Telegraph, William, fighting in Gaza must be brought to an end. The Guardian... Labour leader faces threat of revolt over Gaza despite call for ceasefire. The Sun, Brit nuke sub launch fails. The Express, PM completely ridiculous for illegal migrants to jump the queue. And finally, the Daily Star, greedy black hole eats the universe. I'm sorry we didn't get onto that one. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Leo Kearse and Lewis Schaefer. Andrew Doyle will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Josh Howie and Cressida Wetton. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you very much for your kind attention. Good night.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather. on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm Alex Berkhill and here's your latest GB News weather forecast. It is going to be widely very wet for most of us tomorrow morning. However, before then, we still have some rain around this evening and overnight, particularly across parts of the south as a front has made its way southwards as we've gone through today and is going to linger across southern parts through the night, bringing cloudy, wet weather here. Clearer skies further north at least to start the night before some cloudy, wet and windy conditions speed up from the southwest. Like I said, some clear skies to start the night in the north, and so we could see a touch of frost for a time before the unsettled weather pushes its way in, lifting our temperatures. So most places will start tomorrow mild but wet. Watch out for some heavy rain, could cause some spray on the roads, and we're likely to see a bit of flooding and some travel disruption, especially in parts of the southwest. However, the rain will clear away towards the east as we go through the day, with something drier and brighter following in behind. Just a few showers to watch out for here and there. It is going to be windy though, and so that wind will take the edge off the temperatures, which are above average for the time of year. More unsettled weather to come through the end of the week, likely to see another band of rain sweeping its way through on Thursday, and that could be quite heavy, some downpours possible with showers likely elsewhere, and more showers to come as we go through Friday. It's likely to be a bit blustery at times too, but there should be some sunshine in between into Saturday, and it looks a little bit drier, but temperatures dropping closer to average for the time of year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Ken, do you find the Union flag, the Union Jack, divisive?
In some situation, but as Simon quite clearly stated, and I agree with everything that he says in regards that there's situation when people use it for ulterior motive to cause fear, alarm and distress. We saw that with the far right when they came up to saying protecting the Churchill statues and things of that nature. But largely on the large whole, even I wave the St. George's flag on a sporting occasion. And I don't see anything wrong in raising the Union Jack or the St. George's flag so long as the intention is correct. And as he says, Mr. Brockhurst, he served for the country and he should have every right to be proud of what he's done and the way that he wants to display it.
All right, Simon, what do you make of this kind of, I would argue it as like student social media-based politics, where you get these pillocks from the Green Party or whatever saying, oh, it's divisive and I can't believe it. It will be legal in this country to do... Do those people need to get out more? I was on the streets of Stratford earlier on, an incredibly diverse place, speaking to a massive range of people right across different age demographics. I couldn't find a single sausage who said to me that they thought that this guy from the Green Party was right.
He obviously has absolutely no attention from anybody, and this is his way of finding attention. Both Ken and myself, we both agree that nobody should use any symbol of national identity to offend others deliberately, because that's just inflaming a situation. There's so much sensitivity around so many things today, and people do get offended by so much so quickly without any rhyme or reason.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Good evening. Well, as our future king, Prince William, says the fighting in Gaza should end right now, I ask the question, should he be intervening in this way? We'll talk about the senior official from the Border Force who's now been sacked for revealing that hundreds of flights are coming into the United Kingdom when nobody is being checked at all, yet many are deemed to be high risk. And we'll look at the phenomenon, particularly in the north of England, of young white kids converting to become Muslims and wonder what that's all about. But before the show, let's